Do you think this is happening too often in our country in all fields to our detriment? Because I do. I believe our country was founded as a meritocracy. Why should we have kings and queens in this one industry? It should be based on merit.
Well, Mike, I think you're naive. I think you're very naive. I worked with one of the most famous political Nepo babies of our times, and that's Hunter Biden.
That type of attitude, you can solve it if you hire so-and-so, my buddy, is sort of a form of soft bribery.
People like you and I who were born in the ditches, we just need to figure out how to manipulate the door. I changed dirty diapers.
For adults, right? Welcome to another episode of Smoke and Power. This is a podcast where we take you behind the scenes so that you can better understand the things that make our government tick. Today's episode, we're talking about Nepo Babies, the phenomena that has hit politics just like it's hit so many other industries, where people who are related to the well-connected somehow find themselves in positions of great power. I'm going to start this episode by asking my co-presenter, David Quintana, what did your parents do for a living?
My parents. My dad was in the military and my mom was a housewife. So neither went to college. They didn't know how to go to college. So that's why I had to join the military, because I had no idea how to go to college. So
Yeah. So folks, I mean, David, for those who don't know, is one of the most successful lobbyists in the state of California. And he is not a Nepo baby. And the same thing with me.
Right.
My father was a school teacher, public school teacher. He also served in the military, and both of us came from the least politically well-connected families I can imagine on the planet. But that being said, today we're going to talk about the opposite. No bitterness. We're going to talk about the opposite. And David, I bet you got some stories to tell.
I worked with one of the most famous political Nepo babies of our time, right? I think I probably worked with one of the most famous, and that's Hunter Biden. Hunter Biden, I have an amazing client. They're the clients that allowed me to become what I became. They were my first, still with them. And their lobbyist, when I went to work for them, their DC lobbyist was Hunter Biden. And it really wasn't about Hunter. It was really his partner, who was a brilliant finance guy. You know how in the Senate, like in the U.S. Senate, the lobbyists there, the way you become a lobbyist in the U.S. Senate and in Congress is very different than in California. It's much harder to break in there because you have to, like this guy, I'm not going to say his name. I'll call him Schmill, because I think he's passed away, and I don't want his family to think anything, but we'll call him Schmill. But he had been lobbying for 40 years, and his deal was he was friends with the man who had been the a U.S. Senator for Maryland for like 30 years, and he had been the right-hand man for Joe Biden for like 30 years. And in the Senate, once you're in, you're in. You are a literal gravy train for all of those cars coming behind you. And that was Schmill.
You want to get something done, you contact Jimmy.
Yeah,
right?
That's right. That's how it happens.
He goes way back with Senator so-and-so.
That's how it happens. I can't tell you how many times I had a meeting with a U.S. Senator and they said, hey, now Bob's going to come around later and you should talk to Bob about this, but Bob's going to give you a call. It happens so much. It's very different in California. California is much more like political skill, kneecapping, hand-to-hand combat. In DC, it's pretty much you get to know people for decades. And
for folks who don't understand politics, I want to stress that, in California, this was, we sort of learned in the 1930s here that type of attitude, which is, hey, I got this problem. You can solve it if you hire so-and-so, my buddy, is sort of a form of soft bribery, and it's very improper. That doesn't really happen so much.
It doesn't really happen in California. Yeah. Nope. But in DC, it happens every day. And so Hunter Biden, I inherited him. I was their government affairs person, and I inherited Hunter. And I have to say, I really didn't have any problems with Hunter. I actually kind of liked him. As we are wont to like people like that. He was a very complex individual. And I think I was kind of attracted, not in that way, but I was attracted as a human, like to the complexities. And he was always late to everything. I can say that. He was always running late. It's like, where's Hunter? Oh yeah, he's doing this thing or whatever. And but I didn't have any problems with it. Yes, he was probably the one of the grand Nepo babies politically of our time, but I actually liked Hunter. And Hunter, if you'd love to come on the show, welcome to come on the show. I'd like to talk to you, but it's been a while. It's been like 15 years, but I used to talk to him all the time. But he is a perfect example of what we call in our business these, Nepo babies who are the son of an elected person. Some of them then run for office, right? And that happens a lot in our business where an assembly person, well, just say a legislator is termed out,
Right.
and then guess who's running for their office?
And they don't even change the lawn signs, right? It's like if it's the wife running where her husband passed away, or they just decided to pass along the thing, or the kid is running, it's like vote for Smith. And they have like the
Yeah.
first name really small.
Yeah, they keep you just never use the first name
Yeah,
because you want to save it for your kid and your wife and your brother. Um, yeah, but honestly, I don't think that Hunter probably was the most successful of the Biden camp followers. I think James Biden, Joe's brother, probably was the one who was economically the most successful. If you look
And
at him,
let's be honest, this is something that every elected official has had to deal with at some point. I had a relative of mine who has the same last name, and she was working for a nonprofit, and her job was development. And I kept learning again and again and again that she was calling my donors, the people who felt close to me or maybe felt like they needed something from me, and she was calling them and saying, "Hi, this is so and so, same last name." And oh yeah, yeah, I'm related to Mike, and yeah, and I'm asking if you'll donate to my cause, right? And the funny thing is, I learned about this after calling in a bunch of donors, and they'd be like, "Oh no, no, I already spoke with your relative, and I gave." And like, what do you mean? Like, and this happened again and again and again, and it's that mentality of people trying to ride the gravy train.
yeah, and I mean, we know it happens a lot in Hollywood and in showbiz, right? But it happens a lot on our side, probably more. And here's why I think there's more because in Hollywood, you at least have to have the public buy into the approval of your son or your wife or your daughter, right? The public has to go, yeah, that's a action hero, or
I
yes,
disagree. I think there are so many no talent, non-charming, freak show, complete and utter talentless wastrels in Hollywood who got jobs because they are, I mean, the younger
Rob
sister
Reiner's
of
son.
somebody.
Rob Reiner's son is a great example.
Yeah, or like,
Yeah,
I mean, like you could even argue that there are families like the Kardashians where one family member was very attractive and somewhat charming and made it, and then now everybody else gets into Hollywood at the same
yeah.
time.
Well, I mean, so what I was going to say though is that you are right. There are many wastrels who are sucking up money in Hollywood simply because of their last name or their blood. However, I would bet you that there are many more who have failed and are laying along the side of the road than there are those who tried it in politics. Simply because it's so much easier in politics. It's so much easier because in politics, let's use Joe Biden and Hunter Biden, for example. Joe Biden is the studio. Do you know what I mean? Like very rarely, unless you want to go back to the 1920s and Norma Shearer in Hollywood,
Uh,
um, but very rarely, right, is it the studio head who is doing this. Usually it's it's someone, further down the ladder. But in politics, especially when you're talking about the US Senate and powerful Congress people, or here in California, key chairs, they are the studio. So it's much easier for them to insert, their folks. And Mike, I would say this on the lobbying side, it's much easier for a father or a mother who owns a very large lobbying company to then bring Junior in and go, Junior, you're taking this over. Where in Hollywood, I think that it's been tried and it fails more than it's successful.
and that was something that shocked me when I was in an office, is how much lobbying is becoming a family business where
Yeah.
at some point there would be a father or a mother who would be like, kids, we got a pretty good gig here. We got a pretty good thing going. We got all these clients. And as you know, it funds this lifestyle. And I'm making 7 figures year after year with a minimal of effort. Just kidding.
Yeah.
And
No, many cases true.
then, at some point, you'll be reading that their kid who, went to, some second-rate school and studied underwater basket weaving, all of a sudden is coming into the family business, right?
Or the kid who can't find a job anywhere else. And
Correct.
the father or mother at the same time is getting to that age where they're kind of thinking of, moving out. And they're like, hey, you know what? You're having trouble finding a career. Let me have you take this over. I've seen that a lot too.
So let me ask you this, and then we'll wrap it up, which is, do you think this is happening too often in our country in all fields to our detriment? Because I do. I believe our country was founded as a meritocracy. This type of inherited thing, it just rubs most Americans the wrong way. It's like, hey, why should we have kings and queens in this one industry? It should be based on merit. But there's another side of me that says I'm very, very naive. Tell me how naive I am.
Well, Mike, I think you're naive. I think you're very naive. I think on a scale of 1 to 10, I think you're 8.7.
Wow. We're talking looks, or we talking naivete?
Naivete.
Jeez.
Yeah. Right. This isn't match, man. Hey, so I think you're only naive in the sense that I think it's human nature. I think this is how we were built. I mean, think about all the monarchs in the past. I mean, that was nepotism, right? They passed it on to their princes. I mean, it's human nature. It's the way we work as human beings. And I think as long as we're human beings with, as we know, nothing has changed under the sun since, we first came out of those caves in here, right? The things that drive us and the things that create fear and joy, that has never changed. It's just the stimulators have changed, but not the way we receive stuff. So I just think that's just how the world is, man. And you got to learn how to accept it. And then people like you and I, who were born in the ditches, we just need to figure out, how to manipulate the door. But I think there's a good ending to the story. I know it's a long answer, but I want you to give you a good ending. The people like you and I who broke kneecaps and, I changed dirty diapers. I did. And I went
for adults, right?
Yeah, for adults. I went to go pick up people's dry cleaning. The people like you and I who did that kind of stuff, once we do achieve a relative level of success, we treat it very different than the Nepos who inherited it. Because we value it much differently than the people who it was just handed to. So I think that's the good ending. The good ending is it's more likely to be used better by folks like us than those folks who was just handed to.
I think that's a great answer. I'm sorry for being so naive. We'll pick up this topic on another day. There's a lot more to say about it. Thank you, everybody, for watching this episode.
All right, man. See you.